Hello and welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. I'm Phil Harvey. I am an editor here at Light Reading.
I'm Jeff Baumgartner, senior editor at Light Reading.
And I'm Mike Dano, also an editor here at Light Reading.
Excellent. Welcome, gentlemen. We are here today to discuss, we were going to make it a big 5G event recap since we just finished up with that event already. It's been a week ago. But there's so much event news in general, and we're in the busiest time of year for events. I thought we should probably broaden our discussion a little bit, maybe talk a little bit about the events business and what's happening around us and with trade shows and whatnot, in addition to what our observations were at a big-ish live event that we actually got to go to, which, is the first one in quite a while. One of the things I'll lead with is, in the keynote session on the first day, I did ask for a show of hands in the audience who was attending an event for the first time in at least 12 to 18 months. About 90% of the people there raised their hands. So Big 5G was really the first toe back in the water for a lot of folks. If you're curious about what our coverage of the event was, please do go to lightreading.com. We did plenty of Big 5G event coverage for you to consume there. But I'm curious about whether you guys were, now that we're back from Big 5G and we're sort of settling down, we're looking ahead to the rest of the year, and we're getting kind of a mixed bag. And I'm curious if you guys are surprised at some of the trade show news that's been developing in the last, couple of days.
Yeah, I think the one that just came up, just most recently was what's going on with SCT and Cable Tech Expo. The original plan was to do kind of a hybrid event, where you still had an online component, but you had a number of people there on site in Atlanta. And then, they just announced that they're going to shift gears and go all virtual, decision driven by, the current, surge in infections, the Delta variant and so forth, and maybe some other corporate restrictions on travel in general that would kind of affect all that. So, I would say, I wasn't really surprised. There have been some rumors kind of circulating for a few weeks about how this might go. It's understandable, disappointing just the same. I was kind of looking forward to having some in-person, discussion and getting a chance, to see some of the products and equipment, firsthand, and especially the ones that were kind of focused on DOCSIS 4.0, and then other trade shows. NAB apparently is still going to happen in October, but you have to show proof of vaccination, and CES 2022 is, that's kind of the model that they're approaching for now.
Yeah. I'll note that I just got a note in my inbox about the GSMA saying this exact same thing about Mobile World Congress Los Angeles. So now they are requiring to show proof of vaccination to attend Mobile World Congress LA. That was not required for the for the Big 5G event. And I personally think that was a kind of a failure on the event's part, for not requiring vaccinations. I think it would have made people feel more comfortable, more safe being there in person. I don't think there was any big downside to it because they were expecting a drop off of attendees anyway, for all the reasons Jeff just mentioned. A lot of corporate policies are going to err on the side of being careful because they want to avoid the liability. I think you take away one more reason not to go somewhere when you require vaccination. So I was kind of disappointed in the Big 5G event for not requiring vaccinations. It kind of made the event a tad more uncomfortable for those of us who did attend because we were, having to really take that all on ourselves. Mike, you've written really eloquently about what it takes to return to trade shows. Are you seeing any of those boxes ticked, or the ones coming up?
I know it's been interesting to watch this whole thing unfold. And I have to say, just last night, my wife and I went out to a show that was requiring proof of vaccination. And that was the first time I've actually pulled out that little vaccination card that I have. And you had to show it at the door, or you could show, I don't think they were accepting negative tests. I think you had to be vaccinated. And then apparently you can put it in, here in Colorado. There's an app that the state runs that you can put your proof of vaccination into that, so you don't have to carry the card around.
Okay.
Which I tried yesterday afternoon and could not make it work. There's all kinds of registration stuff you had to do, and I'm terrible at filling out forms, so I couldn't get it going. But anyway, that was interesting, and yeah, you're right. I think this proof of vaccination is definitely going to be a thing going forward. And actually, I just finished talking to, speaking of SCTE, I just finished talking to the folks over at the CCA, the Competitive Carriers Alliance. They represent a bunch of the smaller wireless network operators all over the U.S. They've got a show in Phoenix starting on September 20th. They are requiring vaccinations or proof of negative test within 3 days. Okay. So they'll have those two things. And that's like one of several things they're going to try to do. The other thing that they said they're going to do is they've got a show floor, and you can only walk through it one way. So you can't wander around the show floor. You have to go through the show floor maze.
There's a path
one way, I guess, which he was saying that the exhibitors are excited about, because it means that you have to go past every single booth.
Yeah, you have to pass through the booth.
Yeah. So he says, that might be a thing we'll keep, indefinitely.
That's interesting. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
They're expecting a little bit lower turnout, but they're retaining hope, which is, I think, what we're all doing. I don't know about you, but I've had my fill of virtual trade shows. I'm ready to get back out there. I don't care how we do it. I'll wear my pants on my head. I'll turn my shoes inside out. I'll do whatever they tell me to.
Please, somebody put that in your press pass requirements.
Proof of vaccination and pants on the head are the requirements.
I feel like it would take us exactly one trade show, and we'd be right there doing that too. There's a couple of things you brought up there that are interesting. First of all, I'm not sure that air molecules obey those arrows that are on the floor when they the thing. So that might be a problem, since this is a disease passed with what do you call it, exhalations?
I love that it was I think it was Ian Morris said it's passed gob to gob, mouth to mouth. So you can't put your mouth on it.
Yeah, it's what they call as aerosols. It's like little super tiny, barely perceptible droplets is how it gets out there. But anyway, that aside, I do actually like the idea. Well, first of all, good for them, CCA, for requiring vaccinations. I think it's a smart idea. Like I said, I think it just lowers the anxiety level of everybody who's attending. I think that's really the first step you have as an event company, is to think about your attendees, as opposed to what your food costs are, or what your what your margins are for this or that. It's because when you start thinking of it in terms of your audience, you actually immediately make better decisions, as far as their health and safety and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed the Big 5G event for being, being an in-person event. It was great to catch up, with you all, and also with some of the folks in the industry in person. And it was also, it kind of reminded me of how many conversations that you have are not on the that are not necessarily, the opportunity to have such conversations is not necessarily possible when you're both locked away in offices and you're only communicating by Zoom and stuff.
Yeah, those hallway conversations are for me, I discovered they're absolutely critical. I didn't realize how critical they were until I could not have them anymore. And now, especially at the Big 5G, I ran into a bunch of different people in the hallways and had great conversations and got lots of good tips about all kinds of stuff that I just wouldn't. You just can't get that at least right now, the way they do it, you can't get those at virtual events.
Yeah. I haven't seen a good way to substitute for that on a virtual platform anywhere. It really doesn't work, and when they try to do that, it feels forced. It doesn't seem to to flow as nicely. I mean, a great example of that is like if you get a speaking slot or you're on a panel or something like that, just the randomness of bumping into people in speaker ready rooms and waiting areas and things like that is incredibly valuable. And I intentionally hang out in those areas because I know I'm going to run into people that I want to talk to and I want to hear from about what their companies are doing. There's a number of events that are still going on. So SCT, of course, has decided to go all virtual, but there's a number of events like GSMA, CCA, and some others that are still going on that are requiring vaccines. One thing that did work well, I think, in the program itself at the big 5G event was this hybrid execution. So having people both attend online and participate in the event online, in addition to having people there in person that are also participating on the event. Did you guys feel like that? I thought it worked well. Did you guys, from an attendee point of view, think it worked really well on site?
Yeah, I thought it worked better than I kind of expected it to. Quite honestly, I was like, oh, this is going to be glitchy and it's going to be all problematic. And of course, when it's not, you're kind of pleasantly surprised in a way. I mean, it wasn't always perfect, of course, but I didn't see a lot of latency issues, between the live audience and the people who were kind of remoting in. I think, it seemed like the sound quality of some of the people on stage and those that were zooming in on kind of the virtual side, that you would have kind of some gaps there. And, sometimes, I mean, not entirely off-putting, but, something that you notice. So, I guess, if this is going to be, a model that's going to kind of not take over, but maybe become more commonplace, it might make sense to, hey, let's invest a little bit more on the virtual audio side. Because Zoom, is a great tool, for in-home conferencing and stuff like that. But when you kind of put it on like a big stage, I think that's, where you have people in the audience listening in. That just might be an area to focus on if there's like an area that you could change or improve.
Yeah. I think the quality varied from person to person in terms of like what they were equipped with at home, and that kind of came through in their presentation. That's another interesting kind of side effect. But it's like if you're having to do this for a living for some reason, it does help to invest in throw a couple of bucks down for some decent gear, because that does allow you the range to be able to attend really high end events and also just do regular kind of inter-office stuff or conference calls or what have you. I think the execution on site was really done well. I did notice that and I think I attribute this to the element of surprise. I do think a lot of people decided not to go at the last minute and went virtual, and I think that ended up with some rather awkward positionings in terms of stage presence. So there was at least one panel that I was aware of where the person hosting the panel was there and all four of his panelists or five of his panelists were all on Zoom windows behind him. It was completely awkward, totally random. Seems like something that should have been mitigated or adjusted at some point. I also think the hybrid thing did, as well as it worked on site, it was just as big of a mess off site. So I think when in the weeks leading up to the event, I was made aware of a bunch of people that had to do their panels essentially twice, once for a virtual audience and once for an in-person audience. Yeah. And they expressed a bit of dismay at how disjointed that was, because in each setting they were paired with different panelists answering different questions. And so the two programs didn't really sync up at all. They
wow. And, that is something.
Yeah. So there was essentially, they were essentially doing two panels for one show, but aware that only half the audience is going to be aware of one of the panels, because, unless you actually go on the event app and dig through all of it, which I still haven't been able to get into Swap Card.
So that's the big 5G multiverse, right? That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Like, those are the variant versions of people, and yeah.
Next
I wondered
level.
about that. Yeah. What if I answered in the affirmative on this panel and then denied it on the other panel? You know?
Well, maybe
if
you did that.
You could turn it into something, and somebody kind of purposefully throws these little Easter eggs on certain things, and make them watch both, and then say, how many times did so and so contradict himself? And if you're within the range of 2 or 3, you win a T-shirt.
Getting back to the attendee, I think that's where the whole like having to do everything twice is a big it's a big ask for the attendees, but it's also like a really strange thing to follow as a spectator. It's hard to know which thing to see, which what's important now, since they've both been done, and they've both been done with different panelists, and one was live and one was in person. So it's hard to tell what the game plan was there. The other thing was, just generally, the platforms themselves are not as easy to get into as one would think. So, I mean, I register for tons of events. I have like 15 different apps over the pandemic that I've downloaded for various virtual events. I am completely tired of all of them, and I generally don't participate in them in person. I now just sort of dial in and look at things after the fact. I don't know, dialing in maybe is an antiquated way of saying it, but yeah, Swap Card, I'll call them out. They're one of the more confusing platforms in terms of login. I've been to 4 or 5 events that have used them, and every time I log into Swap Card, I am presented with information from exactly the wrong event, or an event that happened a year ago, or an event that I signed up for and never attended, or whatever. They don't seem to know how to deal with the idea that one person might actually go to more than one event in their lifetime.
Or the date, if the date is today, I would want to go to the one that's today, not next week. But time travel is also an element, I guess.
Hello, Mr. Dano. Do you remember 1984? And here's your, throwing some random event at you. And
like, I get it that you'd want an app that you could use to interact with speakers or whatever. Like, I get the theory. It's just a lot of the stuff is the execution is just a little bit off. But I understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I like the idea of it more than I do the execution of it. And I feel like there's so many tools that we already use in our various offices that I don't understand why they're not just using a super powered version of what everybody else is already doing to augment that event presentation. In other words, it'd be
great to just go to like LinkedIn or something that I already have.
Yeah, I'm already on LinkedIn. Open a Slack channel. There you go. Yeah. Took care of that. Ask me a question there. Or a Teams, whatever the Teams calls it. The Teams, container? I don't know. Something confusing. Yeah. But anyway, the tech part is still. I prefer in-person events for that obvious reason. It takes me.
You can just wait until the end of the session and then go up and ask the person a question.
Exactly.
And that is so much easier.
Well, one interesting, you kind of bring that up. One aspect of Big 5G was the use of, digital name tags to get in and out of the sessions. Mm-hmm. So people, they're just walking around anonymously for the most part, because typical on-site trade show, if you're, the eyes kind of look down at name tags to see if this is a person I need to corner. Essentially now, you can people are just kind of walking around freely.
People floating around in anonymity without their giant placard that they have to wear. Mm-hmm. I mean, see, I blame.
Or maybe you could do your own name tag. But
I blame the events marketing folks for that too at the very large events, because they sell those things out with sponsorship placements and stuff like that. And so every year they would just get more and more gigantic. and hilarious and
Billboard
silly to put on.
size.
You'd have badges and ribbons and all that, depending on what you were doing. You look like either you had robbed a Boy Scout awards drawer or something like that, before you turned up at the damned event. And
you got your camping merit badge. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you can build a campfire. Great. And also a speaker.
Yeah.
It's a really. I'm glad that went digital, but yeah, you're right. It does take away the ability to kind of spot somebody at a company and say like, oh, right, name to a face. I've read your stuff, or I've then whatever. So I guess we're going to have to get better at some sort of offline way to prep for events, so we know who's in the room.
So I think we're definitely I expect 100% we're all going to buy our own name tags, and like name tag flair is going to be a thing, so that you always have a name tag. And then the other thing I think is we're going to have vaccinated pins.
Yeah.
Or T-shirts that say "I am vaccinated."
Yeah.
And so that'll that's a you'll just wear that all the time now, I think.
Yeah, maybe we can get some sort of and maybe that'll end up being branded too. So I'll have above all else, I'll have a Pfizer logo on me at all times for some reason.
Approved by Pfizer.
Yeah, no, this is all going to get sold somehow, but yeah, there's a little bit more I guess thought that could go into it. But I did think back though. I have kept some name badges from various shows I've been to in the far distant past, and it seemed like the trend for a while there was to have actual small, cool looking things, name badges. So maybe we could just go back to that without all the sponsorship stuff and things like that. Maybe it could just be a nice, discreet name badge with a little scan thing on it, so that people could get more information by scanning and all that stuff. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, any last thoughts as we are kind of wrapping this up? What do you think is going to kind of happen in the next 6 months or so, assuming that the variant in the US kind of stays about where it is? It seems like it's spiked in as many places that it's going to spike. It seems like mitigation efforts are happening, but they're very slow to take on. So it's going to be several months of kind of moving the numbers back down to a more tolerable level. Assuming another variant doesn't come along that's even worse, do you think we'll kind of be in this holding pattern for trade shows for a bit?
Yeah. Well, it's weird because every time you try to predict what's going to happen. Well, by this fall, everything will be great. And something happens and you kick the can down the road again. But, we'll see. I think NAB and CES are pretty tied in.
Large sample sizes.
Yeah, they're pretty tied into this.
Yeah.
Show your proof of vaccination. But I would say, if things go well, it'll be next spring, but we could be talking next fall too, Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't go that far, but
before we're at like an event that has like 80% of the attendance that it used to have, that sort of thing.
Maybe a year for that.
Yeah.
I would like to be optimistic and say the spring, but
yeah,
as soon as you say it, something happens.
Well, I'm worried about the winter time too, because that's how that's going into January, February was when the last round of huge spikes kind of happened across the U.S. And so I do wonder about that in terms of once we get out of the fall, go into the winter, is it actually going to get worse for a while before it starts to taper off again?
Yeah.
Mike, any thoughts on where we're going?
I'm hoping, we'll get the booster shots and that'll do it. And, we'll wear masks and that'll help. I'll do whatever they suggest that I do. I'm no expert on infectious diseases. So I'll listen to the experts. I'll do what they say. And, if they say, go ahead and travel, I'll go ahead and go to the shows. Like I like going to the shows. I want to go to the shows. And, in my mind, the most important thing is that the kids stay in school. If the kids stay in school, then we are good. And everything else can start happening. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of my guiding light. We'll keep the kid. We'll do what we need to do. Keep kids in school. Everything else is gravy.
Yep, I totally agree with that, and I think from there we will leave it. We'll leave the conversation there for now. Of course, we'll continue to write about it and cover it online at lightreading.com. To Jeff Baumgartner, thank you for being on this podcast. His video dropped out there, so I'm imagining he's doing a "Can you hear me now" thing into his camera at the moment. Mike, thanks for being on, and thanks to all of you for listening and or watching at home. Take care, wear your mask when you have to, and just be careful out there. Wear your pants on your head.